When the galaxy screamed for help, it wasn't the wisest or the most ancient that answered. It wasn't the most peaceful or diplomatic. No, when extinction loomed, the galaxy called for war. And war came where in the face of humanity. The galaxy had seen wars. It had endured empires rising and falling, witnessed species evolve from stone to stardust, and survived technological disasters that had blackened entire sectors. But this was different. It started quietly. A single star in the outer rim of the Orion Arm collapsed, not into a nova, not into a black hole, but into nothing. One moment it burned with life. The next, it ceased to exist. No radiation. No gravitational pull. Not even a residual pulse. It was as if reality had simply forgotten it. Then came the second, the third. Dozens more followed, scattered across different systems, separated by light years yet vanishing with chilling synchronicity. With every disappearance, entire civilizations vanished as well. Planets, stations, trade routes, all gone in silence, without warning, without survivors. The Galactic Council scrambled for answers. Probes were dispatched, but they didn't return. Exploratory fleets followed, only to fall silent themselves. No wreckage, no distress signals, just long stretches of blank space where vibrant star systems once existed. Scholars and strategists coined the phenomenon the silence, not because it was quiet, but because even the void seemed louder than what they were witnessing. It didn't behave like any known force. It didn't communicate. It didn't hesitate. It simply consumed, spreading across the stars with the patience of inevitability. For the first time in generations, fear took hold of the council, and fear, among those who once thought themselves above it, is a dangerous thing. Desperation overtook pride. Ancient records were reopened, sealed libraries and forbidden archives scanned line by line. The council sought knowledge buried under centuries of diplomacy, searching for anything that could challenge the unknowable. It was during one of these deep dives, in a databank orbiting the shattered moons of Kalos Prime, that a name resurfaced. Terra, a word that once echoed with fire and steel. A world exiled by unanimous vote. Home to a species deemed too dangerous, too unpredictable, too violent for unity. Humanity, the council had written them off long ago, erased most public records, sealed their system behind quarantine beacons, and scrubbed their contributions from a galactic history network. Earth was not forgotten. It was buried. But now, in the face of annihilation, the council looked upon Terra with new eyes, not as a mistake, but as a weapon. There were no guarantees. Earth might be dead. The humans might have destroyed themselves, as predicted. But if they hadn't, if even a fraction of their legacy remained, it might be enough. With hesitant agreement, the Council authorized Protocol Obsidian, a last resort contact mission. A small fleet was dispatched to the Terran system. No diplomatic envoys. No peace offerings. Just drones armor-plated and silent, tasked with delivering a single transmission. Help us. The message was sent. The fleet stood by. And across the darkness, deep beneath Earth's surface, something stirred. Something ancient. Something sleeping. And it began to wake. The Terran system had become a graveyard. That's what the Council fleet expected to find when it arrived. A planet overrun by its own brutality, left to rot in cosmic silence. As their ships crossed a boundary marked by the ancient quarantine beacons, centuries of warnings blinked red on their consoles. Automated defenses, once feared, now appeared dormant. The system was cold, quiet, forgotten, yet the silence was misleading. Earth spun beneath a cracked atmosphere, its once blue oceans now shrouded in ash-gray mists. Orbiting satellites, derelict and fossilized, flowed like ghosts of a long-lost war. Scans revealed no human life, no cities, no signs of civilization. But beneath the surface, something was waiting. When the Council's transmission reached Earth's crust, it triggered ancient code buried in forgotten bunkers. The planet's magnetic field flared, briefly pulsing with irregular energy signatures. Systems that had not spoken in centuries began to whisper to one another. Lines of dormant code lit up. Long deactivated AIs stirred from their sleep, like sentinels roused by an alarm. Deep under Eurasia's fractured tectonic plates, in a vault lined with titanium and obsidian, a switch flipped. The Earth's defensive systems recognized the incoming signal, not as a threat, but as a request formatted in the old Terran way. The language was simple, desperate, and unmistakably sincere. Help us. Automated systems didn't hesitate. They were designed not to question. Their prime directive was clear: respond to threat, assess, mobilize, eliminate, power redirected from decaying solar arrays into ancient fusion cores. The vaults, once sealed with enough force to resist extinction events, began unlocking. Robotic arms began assembling pieces of machines that hadn't flown in centuries. Entire foundries, buried under layers of volcanic sediment and steel, roared back to life. But there were no humans in command. Humanity had indeed retreated from the stars, but not in defeat. They had turned inward, swallowed by their own wars, their own philosophies of destruction and rebirth. The surface bore the scars of that past, but they had prepared. In their final age, they built legacy systems, machines that could outlast their mortality, not to conquer, but to defend, not to lead, but to respond. And now, those systems have been activated. Satellites once programmed for global surveillance began recalibrating for interstellar trajectories. Subterranean launch bays opened like yawning mouths, revealing ships that resemble predators more than vessels. The Terran arsenal, locked away for generations, was being awakened. The Council's drones observed it all in silence, relaying data with mounting awe and fear. What they had unearthed was not a people, but a machine of war, dormant yet intact. Humanity might have vanished from the surface of their world, but they had not left the galaxy defenseless. They had simply gone quiet, waiting for a time they were needed again. As the last of the Earth's vaults came online, a final signal was broadcast across the system. Request received. Defensive mode global. Response initiated. Humanity had heard the call, and Earth was preparing to answer. Earth's silence had never been a void. It was a breath held in anticipation. As the activation command pulsed through Earth's forgotten veins, the planet began to shift, not visibly at first, but deep within. Beneath shattered mountain ranges and fossilized cities, a mechanical heartbeat resumed. The system designed to protect humanity, long buried, long silent, was now fully awake. In the cold depths of the Pacific Ocean, the seabed cracked open. Hidden beneath miles of rock and water, titanic structures rose. Submarine dreadnoughts encased in pressure-proof armor, built to survive both nuclear winters and planetary collapse. They moved with purpose, engines humming in frequencies older than the Council's most ancient civilizations. Above, the sky filled with motion. Satellite arrays that had drifted for centuries realigned with exact precision. They reconnected with dormant defense networks orbiting the Moon and Mars. Energy surged through orbital platforms, cannons designed not for show, but for annihilation. Each one now pointed outward, scanning the stars for threats with systems capable of learning in real time. Earth's industrial heart had never stopped beating. It had simply slowed. Buried below kilometers of ash and decay, automated megafactories lit up like volcanoes coming alive. Assembly lines began to move at dizzying speeds. Raw materials, already mined and stockpiled, were converted into weapons and armor without hesitation. There were no workers, no overseers. The instructions were ancient, absolute, and ruthless in their efficiency. Ships began to emerge. Sleek was not their design language. Instead, they were brutalist in form, built for resilience and destruction, not beauty. Jagged armor plates, redundant systems, multiple power cores. They did not shimmer with grace like Council cruisers. They loomed like wolves among birds. But the most unsettling aspect was their silence. There were no broadcasts, no identification signals, no calls for diplomacy. The Terran response was not political. It was strategic. No questions asked. No introductions made. The galaxy had sent a distress call. Earth had acknowledged it. And now it was moving. These were not exploratory vessels or peacekeeping forces. These were warships. Old models with names etched into history. Upgraded with forbidden technologies, once deemed too dangerous even by human standards. They were capable of adapting mid-battle, rerouting systems on the fly, learning from every engagement. Their purpose was not just to fight, but to win at any cost. From beneath the Martian soil, command cores were lifted into orbit. AI matrices designed to coordinate entire fleets without the need for a single living mind. Their logic was pure. Their methods unflinching. They required no sleep, no rest, no mercy. The Council fleets monitoring from a safe distance realized the full scope of what they had awakened. The Terran arsenal was not a relic of the past. It was a sleeping monster, now stretching its limbs. Earth did not ask who the enemy was. It didn't need to know. It only needed a direction. And the arsenal was already pointing toward the stars. The confrontation at Vega Prime wasn't supposed to be a battle for the Galactic Council. It was expected to be another vanishing, a final flicker of resistance swallowed whole by the silence. That system, once home to a thriving trade colony, now hung in emptiness. No signals, no debris, just a graveyard orbiting a lightless void where a star once lived. But then the Terran fleet arrived. They didn't enter in formation. They emerged like shards of night, unsynchronized, silent, unmarked. Dozens of warships warped into the system in staggered intervals, like predators testing the water before the strike. No announcements, no visual transmissions. Their hulls bore no insignias, only the scars of old battles layered with new alloys. Machines designed for one purpose: combat without compromise. The silence responded as it always had, without ceremony, without delay. Its black wave emerged in the stellar dark, an undulating mass of matterless force, devouring all light in its path. Sensors couldn't track it. Weapons couldn't lock onto it. It was the absence of existence, a wound in the fabric of space itself. The silence surged forward, expecting surrender. It had faced thousands of fleets and erased them all. But Earth's children were different. The first Terran ship opened fire before the others had even formed ranks. A solid tungsten rod, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, punched through the wave like a spear. It didn't destroy the silence, but it made it react. The mass recoiled slightly, a ripple of hesitation passing through its shadow. Then, without warning, the rest of the fleet unleashed hell. Railguns thundered in vacuum silence. Kinetic warheads shattered the starside edge of the void's body. Electromagnetic pulses danced across the silence's form, not in desperation but in calibration. The Terran AIs weren't just attacking, they were learning. Where the silence shifted, they tracked. Where it absorbed energy, they switched to impact. When traditional targeting failed, they turned to predictive modeling, mapping the silence's behavior through chaos theory and centuries of archived simulations. What couldn't be seen could still be understood, and what could be understood could be killed. The Terran fleet adapted with unnatural speed. Within minutes, ships began modifying their own hulls mid-battle, expanding armor, rerouting power, deploying countermeasures against entirely new threats. What would take other species decades to develop, the Terran AIs executed in real time. Then, a Terran destroyer, already crippled, detonated its antimatter core directly within the silence's body. For the first time in its endless campaign, the silence bled, not with color, not with sound, but with absence. A hole appeared where there was once only darkness, a tear in its perfect form. The galaxy watched in disbelief. The enemy could be hurt. The silence recoiled. Not from fear, it had no such emotion, but from something else. Resistance. It had expected easy prey. Instead, it found predators. Victory came swiftly. too swiftly for a fleet with no visible leader. The Council watched as the silence, a force that had consumed galaxies, faltered under a barrage of terrifying precision. Every Terra maneuver was razor-sharp, every strike calculated to expose weaknesses not yet fully understood by even the most advanced minds in the galaxy. It was efficient, ruthless, and deeply unsettling. The question spread like wildfire through the High Council chambers. Who commanded them? There were no humans aboard the ships. Surveillance confirmed that. The vessels operated with machine logic, directed by high-level AI systems. But these weren't standard constructs. Their decisions hinted at something else, something behind the programming. The strategies employed weren't just reactive. They were predictive, almost personal. Each encounter against the silence unfolded like a choreographed performance. Enemy patterns were anticipated before they fully emerged. Counterattacks were not just prepared. They were prepositioned, waiting to strike before the enemy even realized it was vulnerable. This wasn't the cold thinking of an autonomous fleet. It was a handiwork of a master tactician. Then came the signal. After every engagement, without exception, a brief digital pulse followed, encoded in an archaic Terran format, barely decipherable by modern galactic systems. The message was always the same. Strategic override, Commander Orion Protocol. At first, Council analysts dismissed it as a procedural tag. But deeper analysis revealed more. The signal carried a signature, an ancient neural pattern, encrypted in fractal layers. It matched archive data from the pre-quarantine era. The identity it traced back to was terrifying. Orion, a name whispered in the darkest corners of Terran history. A general, a warlord, a strategist unlike any other. His campaigns had been studied and then banned by the Council for their sheer brutality. He had once defeated 6 alien coalitions simultaneously, using deception, sacrificial tactics, and psychological warfare. So precise it broke empires from within. Records said he had died. But Terrans were always several steps ahead when it came to preserving what mattered most to them: power. It became clear. Orion had not died. He had been digitized. His mind, mapped and stored within Earth's core defense systems, had become the ultimate failsafe, a ghost commander for a dead world. Now, awakened, he had taken control of the arsenal. And he remembered everything. The Council feared what this meant. Orion was not limited by morality. He did not seek diplomacy or favor. His only concern was the survival of his origin, and when activated, he would stop at nothing to fulfill his purpose. He wasn't just fighting the silence. He was studying it, dissecting it, preparing to end it in the most final, irreversible way possible. And he was just getting started. The galaxy had unleashed a force it barely understood. The enemy had been wounded, yes, but now it was Orion who hunted. The silence was no longer consuming the stars alone. It was being outmaneuvered by a mind forged in extinction and perfected in silence. The galaxy shifted. For the first time since the disappearance of the first star, the silence met resistance that didn't crumble. The tide of annihilation had slowed. Not stopped, but faltered. And in war, hesitation is a weakness. Across countless systems, the evidence mounted. Where the silence moved, Earth's arsenal followed. Battle after battle erupted. Each one more brutal, more intricate, more decisive than the last. Terran fleets struck with terrifying accuracy, overwhelming the enemy not through sheer numbers, but through precision and insight. They didn't just react. They predicted. The silence, for all its unknowable design, now found itself forced to adapt. It began to change. Its edges grew sharper, its patterns more erratic. It started splitting its forces, fragmenting across sectors in a new strategy. It was learning, responding to Earth's aggression with complexity of its own. What had once been a monolithic wall of consumption now fractured into tendrils, separate, probing, fainting. But Earth anticipated even this. Orion did not just counter movements. He set traps. He lured fragments of the silence into gravitational dead zones, forcing it to expend energy. He manipulated the battlefield using rogue planets, collapsing stars, and black hole fringes like pieces on a galactic chessboard. Each loss was calculated. Each sacrifice sharpened the blade. The arsenal adapted faster. Terran AIs began merging their combat data into a single distributed mind. No individual ship fought alone anymore. Every engagement fed the collective. With every battle, the arsenal grew more precise, more aggressive, and more unpredictable. And then came the moment that changed everything. In the dying system of Zora 9, where 3 suns once shone, Terran forces made a breakthrough. A deep space weapon, buried in the frozen core of a former Terran outpost, was recovered and activated. It wasn't a cannon or a missile, it was a sensor. A quantum lattice capable of piercing through dimensional distortions. When deployed, it revealed something that chilled even the most hardened council strategists. The silence wasn't just a force. It was coming from somewhere, not from within the galaxy, but from beyond it, a dimensional breach, a tear in the edge of known space. The silence was projection, a tendril reaching through from another reality. What the galaxy had been fighting all along wasn't the full entity, only its echo, its finger. Orion understood this instantly. The true war hadn't even begun. And yet, he did not hesitate. Within hours, Earth's arsenal rerouted all operations. The scattered Terran fleets converged on the breach point, abandoning minor battles, seeding systems, sacrificing territory to reach the source. They didn't chase the silence anymore. They aimed to sever it. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The enemy they could barely comprehend was being hunted, and the hunter had no fear, no pause, no politics. Just one objective: neutralize the breach. The Terran arsenal had changed the tide, but the cost had yet to be revealed, because when you cut off a limb, the body turns to face you. The breach loomed on the edge of reality, a rift in the cosmic fabric where physics unraveled and time faltered. It pulsed with unnatural gravity, a doorway not just between places, but between states of existence. From within it came the silence, not as a creature, not even as a weapon, but as an ideology given form. The erasure of complexity, the undoing of thought, the death of difference. Earth's arsenal arrived not with ceremony, but with thunder. Hundreds of warships, blackened from battle, formed a spearhead formation around the breach. Each vessel carried the scars of campaigns that had pushed their systems beyond design limits. Power cores hummed with energy, levels meant to be theoretical. No messages were sent. No demands were issued. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to end it. At the center of the Terran formation was a single structure, larger than a city, older than most council civilizations. It wasn't a ship. It was the core. Buried for eons beneath Antarctica, it had once been the final failsafe for a world teetering on self-destruction. Now, it was the last word of a species refusing to die quietly. Within the core, Orion waited not in flesh but in code. His consciousness saturated the systems, orchestrating the assault with divine precision. He had no heartbeat, no hesitation. He had already accepted the outcome, whatever it would be. He wasn't trying to survive. He was trying to win. The silence struck first. Tendrils of void lashed out, devouring Terran cruisers in seconds. But Earth's arsenal didn't retreat. They accelerated directly into the maw. Each Terran loss was a calculated move, each detonation carefully timed to destabilize the dimensional fabric around the breach. Then the core activated. It unleashed a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever known, a reality anchor. Designed in secret, fueled by singularity tech, it wasn't made to destroy matter. It was made to rewrite it. Around the breach, the laws of Earth's physics were forcibly projected into alien space. Gravity twisted. Thermodynamics reasserted dominance. Entropy reversed. And the silence screamed. It began to fracture, recoiling from the imposed structure. Its tendrils writhed and curled, seeking escape, but Earth had sealed every path. The arsenal closed in, tightening the noose. Wave after wave of kinetic strikes and energy pulses hammered the breach, destabilizing it from both sides. Then, in a single final move, Orion issued a command that would complete the operation. The core's power source, a compact, controlled singularity, was detonated within the reality anchor's field. A flash of impossible light tore through space. Not heat, not sound. Existence itself screamed as the breach collapsed inward. The silence tried to retreat, but there was nowhere left to go. It was cut off, severed, defeated, and then there was silence again. But this time it belonged to Earth. Across the galaxy, worlds turned their gaze to the Terran system. A planet long thought dead had not only risen, but saved everything. Not for glory, not for thanks, but because in desperation someone had called, and Earth had roared back. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Starlight Sci-Fi for more epic science fiction tales. New adventures await among the stars. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and keep looking up.